This is part 3 of learning C#, and today I'm going to dive deep into variables. And for you to understand, watch previous lessons, otherwise continue watching and refer later. Okay, on our last video we learned about variables data types, how to declare and initialize them. Today I'm going to add one more important data type, which is called Boolean. A Boolean type is a value of either true or false. It is mostly used in testing conditions. For example, a variable for testing, whether gender is male, is of type Boolean and we write it as bool. There is only two conditions, which is true or false when testing, however. Today we're not going deep into conditions and stuff, but I will upload a video about conditions which is also part of this learning series. Okay. To declare a variable of type Boolean we write bool as type, and give it a name. In most cases we start with is. And give a descriptive name for your Boolean variables. That's how most professional programmers write their Boolean types. In our case, I will write is male, and assigned to true. For that reason, we will modify all of our variables, and give them descriptive names, also follow a correct naming of variables. In our case, we have been using what we call camel casing, where we start with a small letter and capital letter to each of new word. You can also start with underscore, but never start with a number, and do not contain spaces within the name of your variable. Instead of spaces, use underscore. In our case we will use camel casing throughout this lesson. But if you are comfortable with other naming styles, you can use it. It's a matter of preference. Let's modify our variable names. I'm going to start with my string, and name it first name, and initialize it into John. Then my number to age and give it a value of 30. My float number to weight with a value of 63.89. Remember, a float type or double can accept a number with decimals, but an integer cannot. Integer only allows real numbers. Then for my character I'm going to name it favorite letter. Lastly, for my Boolean type I'm going to give it true. Okay. Since now we know how to name variables, know different data types, declaring and initializing variables. Let's see how to use them in our program. We're going to create a program for displaying user details. Before we start with creating our user detail app, let's try to display the age of the user to check our application. Let's execute the program. As we can see, our program has bugs to be fixed. Why is program not running? Well, the problem is with our float point. In order to use float types in C#, we have to include letter F at the end of the value before the semicolon. It might be confusing to those who are familiar with other programming language such as Java and C++, because they are used to declare float types without including F at end. We put F to show that our variable is of type float. And without F the compiler is gonna assume that is a double, and we cannot assign float to a double type without explicitly converting it. The reason being, float is a 32-bit data type and double is 64-bit data type. That means there is gonna be a loss of data if we just assign float to double, so C# does not allow that. Since today our focus is on software side, let's focus on creating our dummy user details app. Now we want a coded line that will display the name of the user. We're going to write console.writeLine. Open and close brackets, and double quotes to put text as string, and write name with capital letter, also put colons at the end. Now we want line of code that will display age of user. We write console.writeLine, and write age, and put colons at the end. Let's also add a statement that will display weight. And for that reason, let's just duplicate with Ctrl+D on Windows machine, and remove age, and write weight instead. Duplicate again with Ctrl+D, and write favorite letter. Duplicate for the last time to identify if it's male or not. Remember, our Boolean type is for either true or false. And write male or not as text. Since now we are done, let's run our program, and see the output. You can see that it only displays what we wrote as text, but not the values given to variables. So now let's go back, and also display variables as output. To display a variable in a statement, we have to add a plus or addition sign after our double quotes, and include the variable you want to display in line with the code. In this line of code I will write first name, since I want to display the name stored in a variable. And also do the same with remaining variables. When done, run your program, and see the output. We can see for our name is John, which is the name stored in our variable. For age, weight and favorite letter is also the values we assign to our variables initially. And lastly, our statement for identifying if is male or not. You can see that is true as well, because we assigned it to true since it's male. Well, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Congratulations for coming this far. Now you will be able to work with different types of variables and display them as output. Stay tuned for our next lesson. Peace. User Details app.